this is like the most underutilized. And
Yeah.
the service department for customer paying service work in your franchised dealership's back of the house is the most like gold mine thing ever, right? Now, the tricky thing with that is they weren't intending on selling their motorcycle or side by side or ATV, but they dropped it off to get an oil change or a tire or something, else mechanical. And all of a sudden they now have this salesperson type, hey, I really like what I saw back there. I'll make you this offer to buy it. Or if you want to get a trade in towards a brand new 2025 or 2026, and all of a sudden they're being peppered with sales messaging when all they wanted to get was an oil change. The one thing I would say is that if you're going to mine your service department, and I do say mine because it's a gold mine, right? If you're going to do that, you got to have a soft touch, maybe one or two approaches, and then be hands off.
What are some of the things that like dealers can do to really improve their pre-owned game and handle kind of this inventory mix?
So the first and probably the easiest one to get started today for dealers is going to be what I call wholesale buying. This is dealer to dealer, right? And typically this comes in the form, let's say you're a pre-owned only shop or you're a metric shop. You would want to make relationships with the other say Harley Davidson dealerships that take in metric trades, or maybe you go visit the automotive dealers that might take the occasional motorcycle or machine that they just aren't going to retail. Yeah. And you start to build these relationships with these other dealerships that you aren't really all that competitive with. And you start to offer them, hey man, I'll be your guy. Let me buy all this stuff from you. If you need to put together a deal on a car or a new Harley, you call me for that sport bike or that metric cruiser, and I will give you a no BS number on, right? Let me buy all of it from you. You got to take all of it. You can't be picky and choosy with these guys.
Oh, right.
Now, this is a relationship building exercise in most cases. You often have to remind them who you are, what you do, maybe bring them donuts and coffee with your business cards every once in a while. But the wholesale buying stuff, it really doesn't cost you anything net other than just the effort that goes into building these relationships. So you'll be the guy that they think of when they come across some of these trades that they're not going to otherwise retail.
Hey everybody, it's Brendan with Powersports Business, and another Power Hour today, and we've got a special guest with us. He's a frequent contributor for Powersports Business magazine. You probably read him in some of our recent issues, and he's got a podcast. Jacob Berry, welcome. Welcome to the show, and he's got the Dealership Fixit podcast, which we've also featured in the magazine. And we're doing something a little different today as we're going to kind of cross over on both ends. So this will be on, in some form or another on both of our programs. So yeah, thanks. I should say thanks for having me, but also thanks for being on.
Thank you as well. Thanks for having me, and thank you for joining me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jacob, again, we were talking earlier in the non-recorded, our off the record. It's kind of off the record, on the record. It's good background info, but you've got a background in automotive, from what I understand, which is myself, kind of coming from the automotive side. Some might say the dark side, but automotive. I mean, there's still aspects of it that I love about automotive and cars. I love cars. I love bikes, but yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up in a little bit both worlds as a motorcycle and power sports enthusiast, but I'm really good on, I raced go-karts when I was a kid and moved up into cars. So I'm comfortable on four wheels. I'm okay. I would say I'm average on two wheels, but I'm exceptional on four wheels. So,
yeah.
And luckily for power sports, like that includes like side by sides and ATVs. So I can kill it on that stuff,
Absolutely.
And I got a bike right now that I'm testing and doing a review on, kind of a soft review, but it's an adventure bike. It's a little bigger than what I'm used to riding, but it's not huge. But I'm okay riding. You know what I mean? I don't ride all the time, especially a bike like that. If it's a dirt bike, yeah, I could get a little bit better.
What kind of bike is it?
It's a Moto Morini Escape 700, the new one, and it's really nice. I'm enjoying it, but I haven't really done a lot of off road yet because there's not a lot of. I'm trying to find gravel roads. I got a buddy I'm going to hook up with next weekend to try to ride some gravel roads and stuff. But you're not seeing me out on some of these trails. I watched a video where a guy had maybe the earlier bike. I don't know if it was the same bike. I think it was 700. And he was a Russian guy out in the middle of the, wilderness there. And he's probably 6 foot something, thrashing on this thing, doing wheelies, jumping it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I can barely put my feet down on it. You know what I mean? So, and it's heavy. So, at least for me, compared to what I'm used to riding off road.
Yeah.
But look at it when I'm riding a side by side or a four wheeler, it doesn't, my brain thinks differently on four wheels, I guess.
I don't have much experience with Moto Morini yet, but they are definitely on the gas. That company,
Yeah.
from what I've seen, they expanded their dealer network pretty substantially in the last probably 2 years. And then it was AIM Expo last year where they had a giant display, and I think they had like a marching band come out, and I was like,
That was the coolest thing.
yeah, who is their marketing guy? He's on it right now. So
that was PSB, which he's kind of the CEO of their Moto Morini in the U.S. and probably Moto Morini all globally. But I asked him about that. I'm like, dude, the marching band, that was brilliant. He's like, yeah, I didn't really tell Cinnamon, I didn't tell AIM Expo about it. They just showed up. And I figured it was better to ask for forgiveness later, and I'm like, well, whatever, it worked because that was amazing. And then they had really brought out their dealer of the year came out and introduced him, and he had a big old wrestling belt as the award. I'm like, man, that's a great idea. But yeah.
Good job. And they got a good quality product now from what I see. Everybody seems to like those. Those guys in CF Moto, they're really two big up and coming OEMs. Last year or two. Yeah.
CF Moto, again, both, and I'll say Chinese orient, because Moto Morini is built in China. It's got Italian roots and Italian engineering and all that. But CF Moto they've got, they're just a Chinese bike brand, but from what we've read, they're like number 3 in the dealer, in the OEM world right now, as far as the quality and what people are, the sales numbers and all that. So they're on gas.
And profitability. Dealers are actually making some money with them. Yeah.
Dealers are making some money with them. And, I get people not, being, I think the Chinese brands have come a long way, and there's some that will probably never, there are always going to be some garbage brands out there.
Yeah.
But the ones that are serious about it, and again, that are taking quality serious and want to cater to a U.S. market, they have to be on it because, we won't, they'll just get, pushed to the side or be out of business before you know it.
Yeah. The dealers will reject them.
But, as far as new, I know you've got the expertise in a lot of the pre-owned side as well, with some of the stuff you do. So tell me, what's going on, right now, because pre-owned is kind of the hot topic at this point. It's the one that's making the most profit. I don't know if that's good or bad as far as the industry goes. I can't, I think that we've had struggles on the new side as far as inventory, and then being hit with tariffs, being hit with inflation, and consumers not really wanting to spend a lot. So that's where pre-owned kind of fits that mix,
It is, yeah. And what we're seeing in the last couple of years is dealer really taking their own fate into their own hands, right? A lot of new franchises. I love new OEMs. So if it wasn't for new OEMs, we wouldn't have any pre-owned bikes. So they kind of work hand in hand, but they're really kind of catching up with the demand. They're supplying dealers with a lot of inventory right now. And what that drives is a pretty competitive environment to where dealers understand at least the dealers that understand the aging, and this is coming off my floor line and I'm paying, several points in juice on interest rates. They're like, what do I do to get this stuff out of here? And they basically race to the bottom. With pre-owned, you don't really have that. The pre-owned that the dealers lean hard into, they're buying them right, they're turning them around quickly, they're retailing them fast, and they're making profit. And that's what's keeping on the lights for a lot of these
Right.
dealerships across the country right now.
Yeah, no, I think that pre-owned has been kind of a savior here lately, and I think we're also seeing signs of life in the new market, and the new unit sales coming in the second half. So I think that we've had a lot of gloom and doom, in the first part where numbers are just not are caving in, but I think they're starting to turn around a little bit. But what are some of the things that like dealers can do to really improve their pre-owned game and handle kind of this inventory mix,
Yeah, good question. Well, on the pre-owned side, there's several different ways that a dealer can go about acquiring the right kind of used bikes. I'll preemphasize this with, you gotta know your market, right? Hopefully you've been a dealer that's been in the area for a little while. You kind of know what your niche is, whether it's sport bikes or used Harleys or something to the effect of that, right? And I actually wrote a PDF, an ebook called The Ultimate Used Inventory Playbook. And I kind of break down into some of these. And if you don't mind, I'll kind of share my thoughts on some different strategies that dealers can go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first and probably the easiest one to get started today for dealers is going to be what I call wholesale buying. This is dealer to dealer, right? And typically this comes in the form, let's say you're a pre-owned only shop or you're a metric shop. You would want to make relationships with the other, say Harley Davidson dealerships that take in metric trades, or maybe you go visit the automotive dealers that might take the occasional motorcycle or machine that they just aren't going to retail.
Yeah.
And you start to build these relationships with these other dealerships that you aren't really all that competitive with. And you start to offer them, hey, man, I'll be your guy. Let me buy all this stuff from you. If you need to put together a deal on a car or a new Harley, you call me for that sport bike or that metric cruiser, and I will give you a no BS number on, right? Let me buy all of it from you. You got to take all of it. You can't be picky and choosy with these guys.
Oh, right,
Now,
right.
this is a relationship building exercise in most cases. You often have to remind them who you are, what you do, maybe bring them donuts and coffee with your business cards every once in a while. But the wholesale buying stuff, it really doesn't cost you anything net other than just the effort that goes into building these relationships. So you'll be the guy that they think of when they come across some of these trades that they're not going to otherwise retail. So
Is
that's
it relational in that, are they saying, look, if I get a bike, like say I'm I'm a metric dealer, but I get a Harley and I'll offload the Harleys to you if you send me your metric.
That's a great point. Yeah, you can trade and cross promote the different brands. Yeah, if you don't do typically well with used Harleys and you got a Harley dealer down the street, you guys can always trade that inventory. Yeah, not a trade per se, but you swap. I'll give you this and you give me that, and we'll take care of each other for sure. For sure.
Now, are they going to? Obviously, you're throwing a wholesale number out there. You're going to have to go to. You probably don't have just a number in your head like, I'll give you $5,000 for that. You probably are going to some sort of book or a guide, whether it's like MPA's got their guides and Black Book has a guide, so there's certain way, and, NADA has theirs. So you want to look at that stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, your decisions have to be intelligence based. And so, yeah, some kind of software or, small plug, but my tool out there, that does exactly that. But yes, you're ultimately taking the information that's out there that is an industry guide, like a JD Power, like an MPA wholesale, or what's in market, and you're kind of putting this loosely formulated motorcycle math number together based upon what you're being told. Hopefully hopefully the guys on the end that's giving you this buy bid opportunity, they're professional enough to maybe give you a VIN number, tell you how many miles are on it, maybe a picture or two if it's in the
Right.
parking lot. And you're like, yeah, I see it. I know what I can do. Hey, any problems? Maybe you got a few follow-up questions, any leaks, or how's the tires or something like that. But the point in all this is to be quick and to be responsive and not be too picky, right? You got to earn the trust that I'll take anything, give it all to me, because in those you will find some gems that you really buy right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, buying right, buy right, which that used to be a bad used car dealership back in the day, but still buying right is the important thing. And even if, I think again, buying from another dealer, they know you're not going to be able to really just, oh yeah, you have to kind of disclose like, yeah, it's banged up or, whatever, or you get a VIN number, you're going to get enough pictures and things to see like, oh, it's going to need this and that.
Yep.
But if you're like, hey, this is not their expertise, but I can do it, and I can probably turn that and have my service department do a little work on it and it'll be ready to go and I'll get it for a good number.
That's it. Yep. Yep. The speed to frontline readiness is, I'll kind of cover that here in a little bit, but yeah, that's imperative, right? You can't have something that you took in that you bought right today, sit there for 3 months, and then that number has devalued because of a book change or the market has shifted into a new season or whatever, right? You can't have this product that you just took in sitting there rotting basically. Mike Murray from NPA, he used it last time at Dealer Connect, but he says these bananas, right? Our used inventory is like a banana.
Really good analogy. I forgot that he said, but yeah, I mean, how often do you buy some bananas and you're like, I'm going to eat those. And next thing you know, damn, they're brown already,
And he said, make banana bread. That's right. Yeah. But we don't make banana bread out of motorcycles, unfortunately. It's kind of like once they're rotted, you got to figure out how to get rid of this thing or write it down or whatever. But speaking of NPA, that's my topic number 2, right? So we're still talking about kind of acquiring good used quality motorcycles. I mean, there's no one that does it better in this industry than National Powersports Auctions.
Right.
They are the quickest way, right? The tip I gave you with wholesale buying, that's kind of the easiest but high effort way. But the fastest way to get, especially in bulk, a large amount of used motorcycles, especially if you have a good amount of capital to put towards it, they have consistent rated used bikes going on every single week at, I think, 9 different facilities around the country. And you can use just your local one, or you can use one that's a little bit farther away and they'll get the bike to you. But I mean, this is the quickest, most reliable, consistent way to get massive amounts of pre-owned inventory to fill up your showroom with good quality product. And the transparency that they have, I mean, is second to none, right? They give you a report on mechanical, on cosmetic, and overall condition report, tell you everything that's wrong with it, close-up pictures of everything on the bike on a turntable, and you can bid online or you can go down to one of their facilities and do the bidding in person. So they have really made it super cool and super easy to buy a large amount of bikes quick.
They really have.
The downside to that, and it's not a downside, they're a business that makes money, but typically with the auctions, and this is true for any auction, not just NPA, is there's fees and costs associated with that, right?
Right.
And usually the higher the price bike, I think it's a percentage, or sometimes you get a bulk buy fee, something like that. They've always got something going on. But when you do buy at an auction such as NPA or maybe even another one, you always have to think about factoring in those auction fees when you put your final number as the bid, right? It's not going to be just 10,000, it's 10,000 plus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? 1 or 2 fees that have to go along with it. And then the other piece of that is, how are you going to get them back to your showroom, right? They for sure make it convenient for you, and they offer some transport services. And if you're going to be taking advantage of that, you have a fee associated with that, unless you just load them up into your own trailer and take them yourself.
Yeah. I mean, if you're local and you can do that, I mean, it's great. But I know, talking to those guys, that they get as many people or more people online bidding and taking advantage of that, because let's face it, a lot of times you don't have time to go down to, I think if a dealer can go to an auction, a couple times a year is probably pretty good. to get out, and you get to mingle with the other dealers in there.
Yeah.
Kind of talk, talk shop a little bit and see what's going on. But, a lot of it you can just do right from your phone and, or right from your office, your laptop or whatever. So, and that makes sense, and you're right. That's like the painless way to do it. There's other ways to acquire used inventory. We've had dealers, that have excelled in the pre-owned market without doing auctions because they are really keyed into buying units and acquiring units from various sources,
Yep. Well, let's go into another one. So private market is probably one of the most cost effective, but it requires yet again a lot of energy, and
Right.
you're dealing with the general public, and that's not always the easiest. Ask any retailer out there what some of your customer expectations are. Well, now you flip that in reverse and you do it for how you want to buy their motorcycle, right? And there's often correlations there to how you'll be treated in certain cases. But, if you've got a good
My bike is worth way more than that, and
every bike. Yeah. My old boss always used to say, hey, you got a gold bar underneath that seat there? Why are you asking so much for it? It's crazy what people's expectations are, but that comes with your salesmanship, right? You do have to have a little bit of skill built into how you're going to be talking to people. And especially if you come at it from a transparent way, like, hey, I am a dealership, or I am a used bike buyer. That's what I do. I saw your motorcycle. I'd like to offer you something. Maybe you've had it for a week or 2 or 30 days. Not sure if anybody's coming to buy it privately from you, but I'd like to pay you cash for it. And we do the paperwork. I'll take care of all that stuff for you. And you really do provide a good, convenient outlet for that seller as well, because you're a business, a local business. You kind of know the rules and laws.
A lot less hassle, or, especially today's day and age, selling on like a Craigslist or whatever. You're always like, where are you going to meet? Is this guy going to scam me? What am I going to deal with on the other end? Where do we have to go? How are we going to make this
Yep.
We got to get it notarized or whatever you have to do. This guy, as a dealer, you can come and say, I can just make it painless here.
That's it. Yeah. Come to my building. I don't have to go to your home. We don't have to meet at the Walmart parking lot. You come to my establishment, my business, and we do everything here. Yeah. When I first got started in this type of, bike buying many, many years ago, there was the Craigslist killer. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That scared the crap out of me all the time,
That was one of the biggest things.
One story though, real quick. I had a buddy that was like, it was right during that Craigslist killer time. He was always buying stuff on Craigslist, and he went out to some remote area to buy a toolbox, right? And the guy's like, oh yeah, it's in my basement. And he's like, oh, I don't want to go. He's like, but he went in the basement anyway. I'm like, why would you could have been act murdered there, dude. Don't ever go in the basement.
No. Horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that's what I would use. That was my biggest closer at the time, was like, hey man, I know we won't give you all the money for, I'll give you a decent offer for, and plus you won't have to worry about the Craigslist killer. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you got me. What time you want me there? So,
oh yeah, motivated.
Private party is always a good one. Always a good one. Kind of adjacent to the private party one would be your service department. Now, this is like the most underutilized, and the service department for customer paying service work in your franchised dealership's back of the house is the most like gold mine thing ever, right? Now, the tricky thing with that is that they're there. They weren't intending on selling their motorcycle or side by side or ATV, but they dropped it off to get an oil change or a tire or something, else mechanical. And all of a sudden they now have this salesperson type, hey, I really like what I saw back there. I'll make you this offer to buy it. Or if you want to get a trade-in towards a brand new 2025 or 2026, and all of a sudden they're being peppered with sales messaging when all they wanted to get was an oil change. So the one thing I would say is that if you're going to mine your service department, and I do say mine because it's a gold mine, right? If you're going to do that, you got to have a soft touch, maybe one or two approaches, and then be hands off. Because the last thing a dealership wants to do is scare off their service business because
you don't want to be
salesperson's too
pushy
aggressive.
salesperson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But we've seen that a ton, though. I mean, the dealerships that really take that to heart and they go, you know what, let's build a little process around how we're going to be viewing and looking at the service, new incoming vehicles, and then how we create an offer and how we pitch it to them. They're picking up like 12 to 15 incremental sales, meaning a trade-in to sale every single month. And it's kind of crazy how many times they're able to kind of just keep this ball rolling. And out of like 150 service ROs, they get 12 or 15 of them. That's pretty good in my eyes.
No, that's really good. But it also depends on, you got to have a guy that's a little more dedicated to mining that and being able to handle those transactions. You're not necessarily going to be like, hey, I'm the master tech here, I'm going to make you an offer on, it's like you've got other stuff to do. You need your service writer, you need sales or somebody to be involved where, maybe in that weekly meeting or morning meeting, you're like, hey, we got so-and-so coming in and their bike's got this and this. It's 3 years old. They bought it from us or 3-4 years ago. They're probably due, they're not upside down, it'd be a good trade-in opportunity right here. So
Absolutely.
you got to have somebody that's like looking out for like, hey, here's the opportunity here. I'm going to hand that to you in the sales department maybe and let you roll with it,
Yeah.
So then you can kind of keep your service hat on and be like, yeah, hey, we do have an offer, that our sales department would like to talk to you about if you're interested. We think you could trade this in and get good money for it right now and move up to a different bike, a brand new bike, if you want.
That's right. Yeah. Be on the lookout for anything that's 4 to 5 years old, that's got over 20 to 30,000 miles on it. Maybe it could be a minor or major repair or even just a routine maintenance. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that we used to do is we used to put what we called a service liaison, which was a sales guy that had a good approach towards service customers. We used to put him physically in the service drive on the mornings, if we opened up at 9, there'd be people waiting to drop off their stuff. He would help the service advisors kind of do some preliminary paperwork. Here's the VIN number. Here's a couple pictures of it. Okay, we'll check you in shortly. But he would also kind of start that rapport building with, oh yeah, how have you liked this thing so far? I see you got 10,000 miles on it. What was your favorite road trip? And just kind of building that, again, that salesmanship towards it, so that when you do have the offer ready for him, it's much more of a easier conversation.
Right. Yeah, you do have to have that kind of introduction, not just like, hey, I'm here to sell you something right now. You kind of want to ease into it. And you're right. I think that those are, the automotive's been doing this forever, these kind of things forever. And they have it down. And, I think, well, not everybody has it down, but I think a lot of them in general are keyed into that. Whereas, we as an industry need to start looking at all those areas and, kind of opportunity areas for bringing, buying the right stuff, making a sale, thinking in that sense. And even as your technicians need to think a little bit like, hey, this could be a good sales opportunity to buy this and, move it on. So if you get everybody thinking in that kind of mindset, maybe they're not all selling, but they're all like, hey, I just saw this. This could be a good one,
That's a really interesting point. We actually, with our service techs and advisors, used to spiff them that if there was an introduction made for, customer to the sales department about trading in their service bike, we used to spiff those guys, $50 or $100 if the deal got done, and they made some pretty good money doing that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little change for the weekend, go out and, have a couple of pops with your buddies or whatever. And it's not chump change. So yeah, those kind of things I think are out there that we need to work on more as an industry and I think this day and age now with AI and all these things out there, it still comes down to basic blocking and tackling.
Yes, fundamentals. Yep.
You're not going to get AI to do everything for you. Even though AI can help do a lot of things, it's not going to it's not going to sell everything for you, but it can alert you to these opportunities if you're ready to take
That's
advantage.
right.
So,
Yeah.
uh, what's next on your
I got one more good acquisition source, right? These are all about how to source a good mixture, right? Like a diversified portfolio of how you're going to intake used bikes. And obviously, if one is better for one dealer or another, lean harder into that. But the loneliest number in anything you do is one. So don't do it just one way. Don't rely on a customer to come to you for trade-ins and, be standing at your door asking if you take trade-ins. No, you got to go out and kind of get them. And that's what the point of this is. But one of my last tips is to have a really good leverage in your website trade and optimization. So if you take a look at all of the websites that are out there in our space, 99.9% of them are heavily focused on the retail aspect of it, right? And usually it breaks down like this. When we look at analytics, its homepage is the most visited, it's new bikes and then used bikes retail, right? But how well can a dealer optimize their site to promote the fact that they have trade-in widgets, right? Or trade-in opportunities? Is a banner going to do it? Probably not. Is a little call to action button on each inventory listing going to do it? Maybe, maybe not. But what I'm the picture I'm trying to paint here is that you need to really be focused on the messaging on your site, and whether that's something that pops in or scrolls across, it doesn't matter. But if it's a customer that's visiting your website, that is a super high quality type of opportunity, because they're intent based at that moment, right? They come to your website and they go, oh, I see this little thing that says, get your trade in 60 seconds, or we take trades, click here for a no BS, valuation, something like that. You can gain a lot of different lead opportunities from your dealer website for just your used bike acquisition strategy. Now, here's the magic with that, is that most leads all go to one dedicated person or team within the dealership, right? And if you think about the breakup between, this is a retail, I want to buy something from you lead, versus I want to trade or sell something to the dealership lead, they all kind of get answered the same. They got a canned response. They got a generic phone call or text. Hey, what unit were you interested in? Well, I wasn't interested in one. I wanted to sell you or trade in my machine, right? And so what I would suggest in that lead handling process is that you have someone that is actually dedicated, that can have those types of high level conversations. Hey, I see that you wanted to trade in your 2020 whatever. Let me ask you a couple questions. What kind of accessories do you have on it? How are the tires? Are there any damage on it? And you're really trying to kind of like, build this actual valuation correctly over the phone. And then obviously you need to set that appointment and bring them in for an in-person evaluation, really kind of get your shop through it before you give any final number. But it's how you generate, how you process, and then work those customers down that different funnel than all of the other leads that you get, which are typically retail based.
Right. So I mean, you have to handle it a little bit differently, I think, than you're just like, hey, what bike are you interested in, or whatever, that can process. So it has to be able to, whether you're doing it through some kind of back end AI automat, you have to at least get it to delineate between, this is a trade-in we're talking about, this is a different, this is we're buying instead of we're selling,
That's right.
And then you can have the script go a little bit differently. And then, obviously, whether it's, coming through a little bit of AI at first, back and forth, and then going to a real person. And, eventually it gets to like, all right, bring it in and we'll give you a final, a number.
That's it. Yeah. Bring your title and your paperwork with you. We'll handle it this afternoon.
It happen. Well, I mean, talking about the inventories again, with new inventory. During COVID, I remember one of my local dealers, they were all ready to send people home. They're like, yeah, we sent everybody, we didn't know what's going to happen. Then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing. They don't have any, they've already sold out of all this. They were just, working to work used bikes. They're like, okay, whatever. And they were really good on the used side. So they were able to really take advantage of things. when people didn't have inventory, they had inventory to sell, you know? Um, so, it's, yeah, I mean, I think the pre-owned thing, like they said, if it were an OEM, it would be the number one OEM, at this point. But,
Absolutely.
it's, it's covers so many different things, and they're unique. They're one of a kind type, products, but they fit so many different um buyers
Yep.
in that sense. Um, but yeah, no, but as far as new goes, I mean, I think that we're kind of getting through the channel where we had overstuffed channel, and especially on, some of I don't know if the Harley stuff, I hear different stories about, well, there's still a lot in the channel, but I feel like we're kind of now getting through where it's starting to make headway in the second half of the year and the third, fourth quarter, um, for the new units. That doesn't still the pre-owned. They don't really, pre-owned can still survive on its own. It's not dependent on, oh, if I sell too many new. It's just a matter of what is, what you can sell. You know what I mean? Like what kind of customer you have. So you need to have something to offer everybody that comes in the door.
That's right. Yep. And oftentimes pre-owns offer a unique opportunity for even some experimentation, right? So let's say that you are, a metric line with a couple different brands, but you might take in a few European brands, or you got some used Harleys, right? You'll attract a whole different set of customers to you that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise through your used bike retail strategy versus what you just get from your new OEM franchises, right? And
Right.
again, all that stuff is great, and there's a time and a place for it. But the used bikes are allowing you that little experimentation. Let me try this bike, or you know what? I've never had a Triumph before. Let me try to sell a Triumph, a used Triumph, right, or something
Right.
like that. And so it allows you to kind of get a good little mixture of different product that will fit, many asses on seats, right?
And there may be guys, again, it's like, okay, well, I've, mainly focused on, off-road, but I've got some street units, and there's guys that want, again, it's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you had this, and it can fit that way. So, and then, yeah, you might find your clientele, again, it's like, you might think you specialize in one area, but, you can't discount some of these other segments,
That's right. That's right.
um, it may fit and may be a good crossover. Just because you're a sport bike guy doesn't mean you don't like dirt bikes or ATVs.
That's right.
You may want both. Most people want both. You know what I mean?
Most people do, yeah.
More,
Yeah.
more the merrier.
The great thing about this business is there's a lot of what we call cross segmentation, right? If you got a customer base who is truly enthusiastic about riding, they will typically get a motorcycle for the street or a side by side for the dirt, and they might have a personal watercraft for summertime. There's a lot of enthusiasts in this business that we cater to that get a little bit of taste of everything, and that's kind of truly the wonderful part about it. And
Yeah.
and everybody loves it. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Wrapping up here, I think, what are some of your, closing, best advice for a dealer looking to, up their pre-owned game?
Well, we talked about the different ways that you acquire it. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I got all this used inventory now. I bought it all. I spent all my capital. Now what? Well, the recon strategy is really what's going to get you to that next level. A lot of dealerships are starving for technicians right now, and I don't really have a lot of good advice on that, except for, we could do a whole nother hour talk about just the service tech.
I think the whole industry, even on the automotive side, they're always talking about not enough technicians, and that is the big thing. But especially on the power sports side, because it's like we're not automotive, we don't have the big deep pockets of all that, but you have to be really a motorcycle or power sports person to want to, you almost have to be the enthusiast first, and then, follow with being a technician. But,
That's right.
you know,
But when it comes to your service department, you do want to make sure that these used bikes do funnel quickly through that service department rather, and having like a used bike lane or used bike dedicated techs that will work on this stuff, because usually it's a flip, right? If you are buying right and you know that these are good clean bikes that don't need a lot of work, you can kind of already have that built in and then put it into your schedule as quickly as possible. And you want to shoot for a turnaround through your service department in days, not weeks. I know that's a little tougher, a little easier said than done, but if you've got a good stock of, the parts inventory that you're burning through, like tires and oil filters and bulk oil, and you don't have to order it for every single bike, you can kind of get the speed to retail quicker through your service department. Now, once you've got that done, now you've got to sell it, right? And one of the biggest points that we try to make is that, all right, you bought it, you serviced it, and now it's on the front line, but how are you going to broadcast that you've got this product, right? And so the digital merchandising is really the highest leverage piece that you can involve in anything. And most dealers know this, that they understand whether they do it good or not. They understand that their website is important and they're trying to take good pictures and they price it right. And they've got all the details around it, like mileage and descriptions. But, the digital merchandising piece is really what's going to be the game changer in retailing a lot of this stuff quickly. And once you
Cycle Trader or through Craig, through all these other channels.
Yeah, I would start on your website first, because that's your digital showroom, right? Nobody can compete with you on, xyzdealership.com, right? That's your domain. You own it. You have the branding, and you can use Google AdWords or Meta ads to help amplify that dealership website that you've got. But yes, Cycle Trader has always been a great household name. Moto Hunt is a great classified. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, have your sales guys put them on there, right? I would say no place is a bad place if it can display your dealership branding with your for sale items, a price, and how to buy it, right? Click or call or fill out this form. And so, yeah, that's really what is going to be the big leverage that dealers can pull on their used bike inventory. Because all of a sudden, you've got this bike that's sitting in the back of the showroom. It's been here for 90 days. And you're like, why is this thing still have stock photos online? Well, that's somebody dropping the ball and not merchandising it correctly and getting it up there properly, right?
Right. Yeah, no, that's the key too, is like, you can't sit on it and be like, oh, somebody's going to come in and it's all of a sudden going to sell by osmosis or something. That doesn't, or it's on our website. Well, you're going to get some people that way. But, again, I think that in the grand scheme of things, with all these other buying, merchandising type sites out there, your Facebook marketplaces, your site and others, I think are imperative to be in more than one place,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like you said, also, I think a big key is if you don't buy something that is a basket case, unless you're prepared to, because it may seem cheap and you might have a tech, but do you want to tie up your technician all that time to fix this thing? Or is this a winter project? I don't know. You have to look at it. Like, what's your ROI on it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if it, doing things that you can get through pretty quickly, or maybe you have inventory, like say you've got some accessories, like, hey, I have these accessories, not really selling. I can add a little extra value by putting some other accessories on it and making it something even more than what it was stock. I think there's some, or say you buy a bike that has a really terrible paint job on it. You need to look, well, how long can I paint it? Can I sell it like this? Is there going to be some, but there's all those things to look at and to evaluate. But, yeah. No, this has been really good. I really appreciate you, being able to connect like this and talk shop and work on, I'm on your platform in a lot of ways. So we're going to look into some of that stuff for improving our podcast. And I know you have great podcasts. You have great guests on, We've been keeping an eye on it. So keep up the good work for sure.
Well, I can't wait to air this one. I've got the famous Brendan Baker from
Oh,
Powersports Business on, so that's a nice
yeah.
feather in my hat there.
It shocked me that I was at the parts MVP show and I walk into the booth and was talking. Hey, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know you from your." I'm like, "What? Oh no, nobody knows me. Come on." Yeah, so I'm sure you get that, with your podcast too. It's tough being famous like us. Being
I don't know about that.
hard to walk around with all the paparazzi and people just, yeah.
I don't know about that. No one's asking for my autograph.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick. You're editor in chief, right? So you're the boss of what's it like the day to day running such a popular publication like Powersports Business?
I mean, because I do it it's different than what it used to be. Because I spent 20 years working out of an office, and probably more than that, probably 25 years, and working in an office, going into an office every day. I don't do that anymore, but it's like I'm still just as busy. I'm always looking for news. It's a lot of hunting for what is the most pertinent thing to get out there. And because we do our newsletter 3 days a week, I'm kind of a news hound, always look. And then in between that, I'm talking to people and dealers, and we're working on features, we're working on print publications and podcasts and our Accelerate conference, trying to get, all this stuff. Yeah, there you go.
Not right here, man. I get it every week. Or
yeah. So, there's a lot that's changed in the media business, in case you haven't, been paying attention, but I'm sure you have. And it's just everything. It's like there's no off button anymore. You know what I mean? As far as like, even on weekend, it's not like I'm working on weekend. Well, sometimes I am, we go to shows and events and all that stuff. But even when it's an off weekend, I'm still looking at my email. Oh, hey, that's interesting. We're just always thinking about it. And I'm always thinking about what's next, what's the big thing, what do we need to focus on? What's really impacting dealers right now? What's going to make the difference in their business going forward? What's the hot button, And I think we've tried to be on top of those as much as possible, as much as, we can be. There's always more to learn, but we try to just be that resource for learning, I think there's a lot of, we've had some struggles here lately as far as like the industry goes, but I feel like we're inching back onto a path where we're going to be on that upward trajectory. But it's never a dull moment in the media landscape anyway. It really isn't. And it's like, I do a podcast, then I gotta write a feature article, then I'm working on news for tomorrow and the rest of the week, and we're in production for our November issue. You're thinking forward, you're thinking back, but part of it is I'd been doing it for so long. It kind of just is like, well, that's just sort of how life is. It's sort of incorporated in, I've got a test bike, we were talking about earlier. I'm out riding that and trying to figure out how to get my helmet, my intercom system and camera at all. There's always some kind of frustration and little thing you're trying to work on, and, and get
what a tough job having to go.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's like, I can't really complain. I wish I could, I do complain, but that's, everybody does that, but at the same time, it's like, I get to do this, and it's exciting. And I love working with people like you and dealers and the industry in general. It's a fun job. So I'm pretty much.
Thanks. And then let me just speak on behalf of the dealer network out there in the United States, and even our brothers in Canada, and all the vendors. We love your publication. I think it's great. And if it wasn't for publications like you, I think a lot of us would be lost, because in your print and in your newsletters, we get to find a lot of similarities. Like, I'm over here in Arizona, but what's the guy in, Connecticut doing, or, over in the Carolinas? Oh, well, they're having a lot of the same issues we are. And how do we work together? And even the events that you guys put on with the Accelerate conference and the other stuff that you visit and go to. I mean, it's all there to make this industry better for the whole, right? Not just for one or two of us. It's like, we got to make this industry good for everybody, because that's what it takes to survive.
There's a lot of stakeholders in this, you know what I mean? Like it's for it's the dealer, it's the industry in general. So I'm like, who's your reader? Well, it's the industry, but a lot of it is the dealer. It kind of starts with the dealer. That's kind of when I'm writing and thinking about things. I'm thinking about, how does this impact the dealer? How does it impact where you're making that transaction? And then from the OEM down, we talk to OEMs, we talk to, people that are in the service side, try to help with sales advice and things like that. And it's an ongoing thing. It's almost like a living organism. You're always you got to feed it, right? You got to keep, feeding knowledge. You got to keep learning. You got to keep growing. And, eventually we get the results from all of our hard work, and I'm not just talking hard work for me. I'm talking about for the dealer and for the reader. I just try to present ways and inform people of what's going on. I don't like to sugarcoat a lot of stuff. I don't know if anybody picks up on that, but if it's something bad happening in the industry, I'm not really going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. And, so some of those things are necessary, but we want positive. I always look at, like, I'm sort of the chamber of commerce of the industry. You're kind of sitting on, you're a little bit chamber of commerce and a little bit cub reporter, because you have to still work with everybody, in this position, but, and then just to understand what's going on with every, I have to understand what's going on with Jacob in what you do. I have to understand what the dealer's doing. I have to understand the OEM's doing, so there's a lot of hats and perspectives you have to switch between, but, in the end, I just try to do it. So I just want to inform people,
Yeah. Well, you're doing it, man. So keep up the good work. We love what you're putting out.
Appreciate it. And, hey, thanks for the plug. We'll probably use that as but I appreciate it. It's hard work, and a lot of times people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes of putting stuff together and being a magazine. It's, so, but, and again, the media industry is evolving to the point, who knows what it'll be even 5 years from now, but I think it will always exist in some form or another, because people, we're the conduit, you know what I mean? And just like you helping your, dealers and your customers and people, you have to kind of absorb as much information as you can to be able to pass on to them. That's kind of what I try to do too.
Yeah. Every day it's something new. Do you see it going more and more digital and
yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of it's going to be more video and online, more programming, more podcasts. Everybody's got a podcast, right? So I'm always, like I was telling you earlier, I'm the anti-podcaster. I'm a print guy. I started up like not in the old days. So my dad was in the media business where you did, it was like arts and crafts. You're like cutting out words and gluing stuff up and sending, I don't even know how they did that stuff. I came in right at the beginning of the computer, computer to plate, as they said. So, but even then it's the being a print person is, it's a lot. You're not really a print person. You're kind of everything.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm glad you got the print. I like carrying around and I just showed you mine that's sitting over here on the side of my desk. I take it with me when I travel. I read it on the plane. I mean, there's something to be said. I'm a little older, and I still remember the time before digital. Thank you. But
You don't even have like gray hairs or anything. Yeah.
you in there. I got it.
Okay. All right. Well,
A little salt and pepper.
yeah.
It's my kids mostly.
No, mine was salt. Now it's like, I'm like, holy.
But I do remember a time before everything was so digitized, and there's something to be said about holding something tangible. This is coming from the digital guy. I made my career doing digital business in the power sports industry, but there's something to be said. Like, I'm holding this. I can touch it and feel it, and I can put it away and bring it back out.
That tactile feeling of it, definitely, it's like it's with you, whereas like I feel like digital, it's just gone in a second. You read it, it's gone. You might remember the story a little bit, but you don't have that same interaction with it. And it's a little bit like if you're, writing a story or you're taking notes. If you write it by hand, you're more likely to remember it. And I think if you're holding something and reading it, you're more likely to remember than just reading it on the screen.
So true.
Or, or in one ear, out the other. Hopefully people are paying attention to what we're saying, but, we'll make it into a print story anyway, because that's what I do.
One ear and out the other. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap this episode here. Hopefully it hasn't been in one ear and out the other for anybody that's listening.
I don't think so. You're really good. Yeah. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and definitely to anybody that's listening to this, if you're not subscribed to the newsletter or you're not checking out Powersports Business already, great publication, great digital. Brendan does a hell of a job with his team, putting out the news, putting out all the industry stuff that we need to know as dealers and vendors and OEMs. And for me, if you want to check out more of what I've got, dealers.motohunt.com. That's where you can find our business, or go to the Dealership Fixit podcast and subscribe.
Right button on there too, right? Yep.
We do. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, you're a frequent contributor. As said, we've got a story that we'll be running, from your blog that you've sent us. So, for November, and appreciate that. Keep it up. Keep up all the good work. You're a real industry guy, so it's good to know, have people like they are not just like one trick pony. You're looking out for the whole.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you for saying that. I'm a true at heart enthusiast. I came into it, I think 13, 14 years ago, and automotive before that. So I've only ever worked for dealerships, and it's just what I like to do. And so if I'm going to like to do something, I'm going to put my whole effort into 110%.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job at it. So keep it up.
Thanks, man.
Really, really appreciate it. But yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up and say goodbye, everybody. Next time.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. MotoHunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy, or check for the link in the notes.